All right, I wanted to address the loose quality of a lot of my contemporaries. So I've given the example before of how when someone screws multiple people, they stand a bigger risk of getting, some type of disease. And people, in a lot of cases, tend to look at me in this confused manner. Why would that be the first thing you go to when you start talking to some broad and think there's an actual chance of, some in real life penetration? And I always try to explain that, you know, for example, if you're a person who's screwed one person, right? For all you know, that person could have screwed 10 people. Now, if you're a person who screwed 10 people yourself, and those 10 people have also screwed 10 people, then there's 100 different individuals that you have to worry about having had some disease that they gave to one of your 10 partners throughout your life. And, that's why it was always, in addition to the stability of being with one person, it was so attractive, the idea of getting with a single individual, at some early age or whatever, and just being locked down and never having to worry about. And again, I keep trying to explain this. When you look at how modern relationships are designed, where people are making fun of guys for being virgins at 17 and 18, and really attempting to get anyone who is young to try and you know get in bed with as many people as they can. By the time some of these broads get to be 25 or 30, you don't know if their age is now the number of the different people that they've been with. And I know someone will say, "Oh my God, you're trying to make them all sound like, uh, they're just whores." And I said, "No, that's not true, because I've said before there are multiple ones who, probably have not had that many. But the point is, this is still a factor that you can't entirely determine. And truthfully, I really have no interest in screwing multiple people for that reason. I would hate to uh, have caught something and then give it to another person. That's why with the only person I've mentioned before, the only girlfriend I ever had, I said to her, if I end up getting an STD, I'm going to target you, because you're the only person it could have come from. Other than that, I have nothing left to say to you. Go disappear. As I've mentioned before, we split on some non-amicable terms. But I've tried to articulate that it's this thing of not wanting to talk to these chicks anymore and not trying to give them the time of day, was a twofold protection, where you're protecting yourself mentally from having to be put through a lot of the red herring. Oh yes, I'm attracted to you, which is why I'm speaking to 19 other men behind your back, and which is why in 2 weeks I'm going to tell you I just want to be friends, even though I laughed at all your jokes and complimented you over and over again, because you're not pretty enough for me. Basically, is what they're. That's the mental part of it. The physical part of it is that even if you successfully get with this person, you have to wonder and worry about how many people they've been with, and it only gets worse the older the broad, due to the fact that we live in an era where they're constantly prepping it up in people's minds. Hey, you know, oh, you're almost out of high school and you haven't screwed anyone. Oh, you're probably gay. Stuff like that, where they don't attempt to really say anything rational. They just, and people go into peer pressure. That's why, even if you have someone who, let's say, did not do it or never had it, they're going to say that they did, because they don't want to look like a, I guess, pre-model of the 40-year-old virgin, that film that came out. And it's so frustrating, because due to the fact, and I've mentioned this before, the reason a lot of these chicks are able to get with most of the guys they get with isn't because of them having interesting personalities or having anything in common with that person, having anything to offer besides sex. It's because most males in the modern era are so starved of female attention that by the time any broad comes around, they just jump at it. Um, I gave the example of the person who, and if you follow this stuff for a while, I'm talking about the individual that was with the chick that took him for everything and whatnot. And I give that example, or I gave that example to illustrate the point that this person probably believed they would never get with someone else if they didn't get with that person. And that was why they put up with a lot of the, just the running of the mouth, the various character assassinating statements that she made. There was a lot of stuff that was involved in that. But when you have a generation of males that can't get with as many or any of the chicks that they want to get with, and then one of them, some random broad, right, who has been ran through like a train tunnel, decides to wave her finger in front of him, he jumps at it because for all he thinks or for all he knows, he might not get it willfully for another 5 or 10 years when some other broad tries to use him for all that he has. And that's why I said that it really feels like it's a mixture of gold diggers and people that are just trying to use you for some other ulterior motive. And that's why it's the when I gave the recommendation about the prostitute thing, I was saying when people get out of thinking that these broads who are not prostitutes are these wonderful darling angels who have never been in bed with multiple people, that's usually when they start to say, hey, wait a second, well, maybe it's not entirely ridiculous to say screw waiting around for a bunch of people who can't make up their minds to finally act like I'm a human being. Let me go get this over with this individual in whatever state and whatever area that's willing to do this for some fee that I have and can pay up front. And it's a thing where when they stop believing in the red scare of of these horrible, dangerous chicks who have been with every single person in your neighborhood. That's when it starts to the facade starts to wear off. And it's really funny because a lot of the people who do that, they always try to how do I explain? It's two narratives where the one narrative is you have to get screwed as quickly as you can if you're a man, and then the other narrative is, but make sure it's with this right person who is, because remember, we live, people like to live when it comes to romance like we're in a Disney movie. So automatically, if you just wait year after year after year after year after year after year, suddenly you'll come across this perfect woman who hasn't slept with a bunch of people and likes you for you and wants to be with you and has decided that she's not trying to get any monetary thing from you and there's no ulterior motive, and yeah. And people tell themselves that because the ugly truth is that a larger number of males, even if they don't speak in a disparaging way about these chicks, are experiencing this thing of being completely ignored by their female contemporary and trying to pursue things they can get from a woman in other avenues that are related to financial stuff. So the most extreme thing I could do, for example, as someone that wants children, would be to pay a surrogate, which costs some ungodly, ridiculous amount of money, and it most likely I would adopt anyway. But if you're looking at the casual person who just wants to get screwed every now and again, they'll go get a prostitute. Um, and that's why I said that when you look at these different things that can be done to achieve anything you want with a chick, it makes the practice of going and talking to one for 2, 3, 4, 5 months just so she can make up her mind about whether or not you're worth her time or you're worthy of being involved with her in that manner, all the more fruitless because everything that she could possibly give you, which we can already rule out cash, because what ends up happening is that the man in his suppressed his sexually suppressed state decides to flip the bill for this broad over and over in the hopes that she'll like him or reciprocate his feelings. um, so we already know it's not financial, and then every other physical thing that it can be done by someone that is of the prostitute variety. And I kept explaining that when we talk about having birth rates that are a 30-year low, that's because most of these modern people, they just want to screw each other. And that's why it makes so much more sense why I was unable to get a partner, because people don't want commitment. They, for the most part, they just want to screw indiscriminately and try out as many individuals in bed as they possibly can in some weird sexual manifest destiny. And that's why I said just protect yourself and don't fall for the tricks of a lot of these different broads, because they're not looking out for anyone, including themselves. So if they don't care about themselves, they certainly won't care about you.